Welcome to NovoEDTalks, a podcast for authentic, honest conversations about talent development and the people shaping it. On this show, we sit down with leaders across learning and development, mentorship, leadership development, HR, and people strategy to talk about what's really working, what's changing, and what they're learning along the way. These aren't surface level interviews. They're candid conversations about building skills, developing leaders, supporting managers, and creating experiences that actually move organizations forward. Before we jump in, a quick word about NovoEd. Founded at Stanford's Social Algorithms Lab in 2012, NovoEd is a people-centric talent development platform built for enterprises and training providers. Business transformation starts with people, and people perform better on NovoEd. In today's fast-changing landscape, upskilling requires a new approach. NovoEd makes it easy to move beyond the talent development status quo by combing social, collaborative, cohort-based learning with real-world application. The result is future-ready talent built on a platform designed to turn learning into measurable impact. Now, let's meet our guests for today's NovoEDTalks episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NovoEDTalks podcast, a space for talent development trailblazers to get real. My name is Melissa Fisk. I'm the producer of the NovoEDTalks podcast, and today I am joined by Monica Anderton, who is the CHRO of DS Smith North America. Monica is a multifaceted international human capital senior executive with expertise in building and directing programs that enhance business performance, improve productivity, and drive linkages to both short-term and long-term objectives. Monica, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the NovoEDTalks podcast today. Welcome.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, well, why don't you actually start by elaborating a little bit on that introduction and telling us a little bit more about yourself, your role, and the scope of the people or talent initiatives you're responsible for today.
Yeah. So I head up North America for DS Smith, and it's a global company based in the UK, and we've got about 30,000 employees, but my span of control is North America only, and we've got about 2,000 employees and 17 locations, predominantly plants in the southeast of the US. And we recently, in the last year, have been acquired by International Paper, so we're going through a lot of change and merger integration as a result.
Wow, I bet. Must be a fun time, though. Why don't you talk to us, especially in the midst of this kind of transition, what some of the biggest talent or workforce challenges that you're all navigating right now?
Yeah, being manufacturing right now, we're struggling with a lot of the same issues that the manufacturing community in the US is struggling with, and that's just resources and talent. We've had attrition issues, we've had leadership kind of gaps and issues, and just sort of retention of, why do you want to work for manufacturing anymore? Is it really sexy? Is this a draw for a career and engaging folks to come in and work for us? And then with the recent news of the acquisition, we're going through a lot of change management. So I think traditional things that most manufacturing folks are going through, we've been struggling with. I mean, there clearly is a shortage in the labor pool in the US for talent in the manufacturing space. But at the same time, we've got a little bit of the twist of the acquisition going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, just got to throw that in for just a little bit of a twist there. I'm sure. When you talk about kind of, and maybe y'all are working, a lot more directly towards this, but when you think about your ideal state of talent development at your organization, what does that look like? Talk about that a little bit.
Gosh, that's a great question. I think my ideal state, and this will make you kind of laugh, is first being fully staffed. Then having the right people on the bus going the right direction, right? It is critically important that we've got a talent base that's engaged and working and wanting to be with us and helping grow the business and serving the customers that we sell to. And so that for us is a big deal and been a real challenge over the last couple years. And our brand wasn't really well known in the marketplace. So at the same time, we're trying to get fully staffed. We're trying to say, who are we? What are we about? What's our value proposition? And why do you want to be on this journey with us?
Sure, absolutely. Not easy questions to answer. Certainly not too in a time of big change. But so where do you feel From your perspective, where is the biggest gap between kind of that ideal state and today's reality that you're working in?
Um, I think it's having the room for people to develop and grow. And that ideal state is, fully staffed and ready to go and train and able to deliver what we need to do. The challenge is when you've got remote plants all around the US, and some of them are as little as 17, people in a facility, that growing and developing becomes a real challenge because people don't want to move as much as they did in the past, relocate for an opportunity. So, how do you provide that growth and development opportunity in a remote kind of location while still doing what you need to do for the business? And it's really, really tricky, right? So, it's meeting our needs as a business and where we need people, but it's also offering the opportunity for people to grow and develop. And I don't know that I have a magic answer to that, but it's been a real unique challenge. And I think the other facet that I probably didn't put in there is we have an aging workforce, just a very long tenured, which we love, but aging workforce. And we're starting to see people retire and leave and get on with the next phase of their life. And how do we do that knowledge transfer? How do we encompass, those people leaving us with the new generation and mind meld and knowledge transfer? So really.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something, across the board that we've heard brought up time and time again right now on this podcast. It's just with a generation getting ready to leave the workforce and a very different new generation coming into the workforce. How are we transferring knowledge? How are we, approaching and creating an environment that's, the best for everyone in the workforce? So we've definitely heard that before. Talking about switching gears to, this kind of thought topic of development that sticks. What approaches are you finding most effective for helping people actually apply what they learn and just not complete programs or attend sessions?
Yeah. So it's a great question and it's a hard question, right? Because everybody learns differently. And if I've said that once, I've said that about 1,000 times. And so the places where we've seen the development stick are training and development that we either do like a pre-survey and a post-survey where we're kind of touching base before and after, and it's not just come to a survey for 2 hours and then leave and then it's all there. It's kind of testing the knowledge and making sure. We do a lot of role play, case studies, real life issues so that they're in there kind of plowing through something that's going on in the business today that they can relate to, that is meaningful, and that they feel like they're solving real life problems, not just how to communicate effectively step 1 through step 10, right? When we give them real life problems, it is very, very helpful. And I would say one other thing that we have available is we have a learning management system called Percipio, and it has a huge catalog of online self-paced development. It could be books, it could be an AI coach, it could be whatever they want to do. So there's a toolkit behind the training and development that we may do in a stand-up training or on a project basis, but there's also resources that we can direct people to, that if they need some additional help or they want some additional learnings, there's other ways to get it besides just that traditional stand up type training.
Absolutely. That's great. And I think so important, like having a well rounded kind of resource center or where people can go to get kind of the education and development that they need. How do you keep development experiences engaging and relevant for employees who are already stretched thin?
Gosh, it's a great question, especially in manufacturing, right? Time is money and it's really hard. I mean, the engaging part is we measure and we do employee surveys, we do a lot of 360s, so we do a lot of data gathering so we kind of know tones and culture and things on people's minds. So we try to make sure what we're delivering is real to what the issue or the problem is at hand. I'm not saying it's perfect, but at least it makes it relevant. So you've got that pull where people want to learn and be engaged in the process. And we also tie it to our performance management. Every performance management we do has a development plan in there. And we have the employees self rate what their development needs are. And we can also, as leaders of people, go in there and provide our feedback. So I feel like we've laid in a foundation and an infrastructure where we're trying to align and push the importance of development and sort of what's important to the business. And in those performance conversations, hopefully they're talking through what does that look like? What are some opportunities? Whether it's peer mentoring, it's a project, it's whatever it is that we're trying to fix it to the individual given sort of the limited scope that we may have in resources and time, but we try to facilitate what we can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you mentioned a lot of things there that we really see that, the peer mentoring has become like a huge thing that I think people are starting to really rely on, especially with what you were talking about earlier too, with those, different ages in the different generations in the workforce right now, where that can become a really powerful way to get learning to kind of stick and be seen beyond just like checking a box or something like that. How do you keep development experiences at oh, sorry, I just read that question again. We'll cut that part out. I accidentally scrolled. I always tell people that. I'm always the first one that makes a mistake. Monica, there's been a shift from talking about soft skills to more durable or power skills. Maybe you've even heard them called. Things like judgment, discernment, adaptability, and decision making. How is your organization thinking about skills development in this moment with everything changing?
Yeah, that is just a fantastic question because so I'll give you a little bit of example, and I don't know if we're doing it perfectly, but we kind of talked. We're trying to offer platforms of different ways of getting at training and development, but we run all of our leaders through a frontline, first line manager training. So all people managers go through that core, which is our culture and our expectations as a leader of people. But now when you're talking about judgment or adaptability or these power skills, it's how do you kind of target what's going to have a meaningful impact on the business and leverage those and pull it forward. So you've got that traditional frontline manager class. We've been augmenting targeted trainings on gaps that we've seen. And I think what we're going to start doing is adding on these power skills that they're called as sort of the training and development world evolves in that direction. We haven't done it perfectly yet. It's on our radar, but I know that it really drives ROI. But I think we were heading that direction of travel anyhow, because we know the frontline manager training is a great base, but there's still a lot of gaps. And we know there's gaps because we see culture, we see attrition, we see lack of engagement in our employee surveys and our performance reviews. We're really monitoring data that shows us, hey, we don't have it all perfect yet. So where do we need to go hone in and go target more training and development in that space, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that brings up, you led me right into my next question, which is how are you measuring whether your talent or development efforts are truly making an impact? You just mentioned a couple of kind of indicators that you're looking at.
Yeah, it's a great question, right? We're in manufacturing, you're running 24/7, right? So you don't want to have overtime and you want people at on the job all the time when they need to be there for their shifts. And so the reason that we're watching engagement and turnover and even overtime and on time and in full and waste is it's all correlated, right? And so if we aren't kind of watching the numbers and we don't have skilled workers to do what they need to do, it's going to fundamentally impact our profitability as a business. And we're really, really tied into watching that engagement and retention in the beginning because we had massive issues when I first started about 7 years ago in attrition and turnover. And then we didn't quite get that. Well, that's why product wasn't going out the door. Like, I think we knew that, but like it was real. Then we started looking at a manager level who was an outstanding manager, who had great employee survey feedback, who had great attrition, and said, here's a persona of a great leader in our business. Here's a persona of a good supervisor. Here's the things that that individual is doing. How do we mirror that for other supervisors and managers that need help and development so that we can not self train, but help our teams kind of learn from one another of what works and what doesn't work in that environment. And not all of that's that traditional stand up training and development. We actually have the ability to train our own gang when we finally figured out where some of the gaps were. And we really use the personas to say, this is what great looks like. Do we have it right? And then how do we replicate that in other people? And then who's really good at it? Would they be willing to be a mentor and help develop somebody else?
That's brilliant. And, such a good thing that I think any industry could take away from what you just talked about, right? Where any organization can look, because it's different from, someone could be a great leader in their past role, but then switch into a new organization and a new environment and be like, they're missing the mark. And because maybe it's like a different environment, a different culture, and they're just not resonating with their group that they're leading as much. So I think that's really, I love that, what you mentioned there. And I don't think we've ever had anyone really talk about that, the personas, like creating these kind of personas and then finding people who are those personas in your organization and kind of
Well,
using
and the thing that's really cool is I have to give my sales team just huge props and our global talent folks because we did a lot of personas around what do our customers look like, and then they started saying what do our leader personas look like, right? What are they today? What do they want them to be? And when you're doing a persona, it's not you versus Monica, Melissa versus Monica. It's here's what we say is a gold class, best in class, and this is where we all want to get to. So it depersonalizes it where you're not feeling poked at, but you're saying this is what excellent looks like in our organization.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's, as a marketing person, I'm like, yes, personas for everything I live and die. Oh, but I think and so I love the concept of it, but just I've never heard it applied to, your leader persona within an organization. I think that's brilliant and so self-aware and intelligent, from your department's perspective. So I love that. Switching over to kind of, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up tech, AI. So switching over to AI, is AI showing up in your talent or people strategy today? And if so, where are you seeing the most value so far?
Yeah, so we've dabbled in it. Like back to the Percipio has some tools that's AI and coaching. So we're dabbling there. We're probably not where we need to be, but we're manufacturing, so we fight for the dollar and it's either invest capital in a business or invest in our people. So it's trying to balance that out. We've run a couple of trials that aren't in the training and development space, but for instance, we have our own sandbox and we have multi languages. We were spending millions of dollars on translations every year, and so we started an AI beta with translations, and it worked brilliantly. And we get a lot of requests for proposals because we're a B2B. We service really big customers. They're asking a lot of questions about ethics and code of conduct and what have you. So you're answering the same questions a lot. We've put that into the AI and created a database of a lot of our responses and sped that process up. I would love to see us jettisoning closer and faster towards the people space. I think if anything, we'll do it more on the automation and the operational excellence, but I think it's fighting for the monies and the support, at the same time balancing where's the bang for the buck in the business and then sort of the cybersecurity risk. We've had some cyber attacks in the past that have been kind of strange in some of our international locations. And so it's that safety hesitation, but yet we need to get on board because it's going 100 miles an hour. The train's not going like 2 miles an hour. It is the AI train is just going, rocket speed. And I think we need to jump on. It's just maybe we need to jump on quickly and pick something and go. And we're not there yet, and we need to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think it's being self-aware of that though is important. But I also think it's really, really important. It comes up all the time on this show is the uttermost importance and need to be so intentional with it, and like how you're going to bring it in and not and have some guardrails there and make sure everyone feels like safe and comfortable in using it and knowing that it is going to be beneficial and not open the door for more chaos.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a tool, right? And there also has to be that human element to it, right? We cannot let it not lose its human. Some human needs to be looking at the data, validating it. It's great and wonderful, but there needs to still be a bit of a human behind it and a source of where did it come from?
Absolutely. And that kind of hits on the answer to my next question is, obviously balancing efficiency and scale with quality and human connection. You mentioned that, with the AI translations tool, that's something, yes, okay, we can, that is an immediate benefit there. But, how do you, as technology plays a bigger role and can advance, certain processes, how are you balancing that efficiency and scale, with that human connection component?
Yeah, the translations is a perfect one. We still have somebody reading the output before we would deploy it in a customer facing thing for an employee thing. We still have somebody's eyes looking at it because there's tenses and words and vernaculars that sometimes don't translate in Spanish when one area may mean one thing and another area may mean something else. So we still have people touching the output. We would never send a request for proposal without a human looking at what we generated out, right? So I think we're putting in those touch points still, but I do think it could really speed up a lot of the things that we're doing. And it's just balancing on what's the use case of where's the best next opportunity and how do we deploy it? And then just going. I mean, we've got this mantra of fail fast, recover, and move on, right? I mean, I'm really big at give it a whirl, see what's working, what's not working, what are the lessons learned, improve, move on, try again, right?
Monica, as you look ahead to the next few years, what do you believe HR and talent leaders need to rethink or approach differently to support sustainable growth?
Ooh, yeah, it's a great question. It's going so fast right now. I think it's even as leaders, we need to keep up with what's going on in the marketplace. I'll give you, for instance, I mean, I've done a million interviews and I know I've been interviewing people and I can see I don't think they're answering the question. So I think somebody's prompting them or helping them. And then there's AI tools that'll record the whole conversation, give you the notes, give you the high points and give you the low points of an interview. That's all great. But did you really have a good connection with a candidate or is that the AI interpretation? So I think it's being aware of what the art of the possible is, but managing it at the pace that the organization can absorb, but don't get left behind. And I think you could very quickly get left behind in this just rapid expansion of AI and tech.
No, absolutely. I love that though. And, something so important, obviously, is like the interview process. I think that is, yes, it's so daunting, right? Where it's like so many candidates, so many resumes. How do you go through it? And, how do you potentially use AI to help standardize questions or things like that? But then, yeah, there's something there that you get just in an interview, like where or don't know. And it's like because you know your company culture or don't know your company culture. And I think that is such a good point, like so important that, leaders don't lose sight of it.
Well, and your brand in the marketplace too, right? I mean, I have a lot of people with the acquisition that we're moving some people out and some people are transferring over. And, they're not even getting the opportunity to be interviewed because some AI bot screening them out. And you just think like, what is happening here, right? I mean, is that bot applying? Is it a person applying? So it's remember you have a brand as a company in the marketplace and part of that brand is how you acquire really excellent talent and I think there's a correlation to that of just being really careful you don't lose your brand in the speed of sourcing candidates and making sure you're getting the right ones, right? That human intuition, that human touch.
No, absolutely. I think that's brilliant. Monica, to close, what's one lesson that you've learned as a talent development people leader that you wish you'd known earlier in your career?
Yeah, so many, so many. I think I've learned a lot, but be easier on yourself, be kinder to yourself. I mean, all that kind of stuff. But I think go with your gut. I think you have a really good gut. Most people have great instincts. And I think if you have a visceral reaction, you know what the right or the wrong answer is. And I think if you do it with the right intent, you're never going to have a bad consequence, right? So I think go with your gut and fail fast, right? What's the worst thing that can happen? Okay, it doesn't happen, but at least you tried. And I think there's so many people that hesitate and I'm just a lot more go for it, right? What's the worst thing that can happen? Okay, it doesn't work out, but at least you tried, you learned, you evolved, and you go at it again.
now. Absolutely great pieces of advice, Monica. Thank you so much. I love the go with your gut one because I think that's, especially with more advanced tech nowadays and things, it's like, oh, do I not know this? It's like, no, like don't lose confidence in yourself. And like you do have a voice and use it, So I really love that. Beautiful note to end it on, Monica. Thank you so much for joining us on the NovoEd Talks podcast today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here.
Same. Thanks for having me.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to another episode of NovoEd Talks.